Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Wanhsi. I'm a director in Crow, and today we'll be talking about migration. Migration of a foreign domiciled fund into Singapore. Essentially, there are two ways of doing so. One would be a transfer of assets or share swap into a newly incorporated VCC in Singapore and liquidation of the existing foreign entity. I will term that as FE for short. The second method would be the redomiciliation of the existing FE to a VCC, and this is provided for under the VCC Act, and the precise mechanics are under the subsidiary legislation, which is the Transfer Registration Regulations. Redomiciliation, what it is and its advantages. Essentially, it is a transferring of the FE's place of domicile or incorporation into Singapore instead of setting up a brand new entity. There are many advantages to this. I think first and foremost would be that it enables the FE to retain its track record, its corporate history and goodwill. And that's particularly important for fund managers when the fund is successful. Second, it will not affect the obligations, liabilities, or rights of the FE, so it just continues. And third, the main bulk of the structure and documentation remains the same. There won't be many changes, so you don't have to start from afresh or revamp the whole thing. I think what's the most crucial would be that the cost would be reduced, both administratively and operationally. Instead of having to operate two offices in two different jurisdictions, for example, Cayman Island and Singapore, it's now all in one jurisdiction. And also the compliance to regulatory requirements will be reduced. Now we come to the key requirements under the various jurisdictions for redomiciliation. I've divided that into the offshore and Singapore. For the offshore one, firstly, it's got to be authorized by the original place of incorporation. The laws of the FE must allow for transfer of incorporation, and there are legal requirements for that. Firstly, there would be director shareholder resolutions to be passed. They could be giving notice to existing shareholders of the transfer, statutory declarations to be made. In some jurisdictions, for example, like Cayman, they may have to deregister the fund from SEMA. The offshore structure must also be a body corporate that comprises one or more collective investment schemes like the VCC. So the structure has to be similar to the VCC. That would be the segregated portfolio company in the Cayman Islands or the protected cell company in Labuan or Guernsey, for example. In the Singapore side, we've got to make an application to ACRA for the transfer or domiciliation. It's quite a simple procedure. First, you have to submit TOR1 and also the prescribed documents, and that would include the certified M&A, the articles of association or the constitution, the consent of the local director to act, the director's declaration of fit and proper. The FE also has to comply with solvency requirements under the regulations. The two specific requirements would be that the FE must be able to pay off its debts, and two, that the foreign assets have got to be more than its liabilities. If the FE intends to wind up within 12 months, the FE must be able to pay its debts. And also there must not have been any appointment of receiver or manager, or traditional manager or liquidator. The application also has to be made in good faith, and there must not have been intended to defraud existing creditors of the fund. If the application is successful, ACRA will then send a written notice of the date of transfer or registration. There has to be a document evidencing the deregistration of the FE from its original place of incorporation to ACRA within 60 days from that date of registration. There are also other considerations for redomiciliation, mainly to do with tax. Tax may be imposed on the place of location, the location where the investments have been made under the fund or where the investors are located. Depending on local laws, the transfer or domiciliation could be treated as an exit or disposal of shares. So there might be tax implications to that. The second thing would be that the VCC would be able to apply for tax exemptions. And essentially, if the fund, the VCC, makes designated investments, there will not be any tax imposed under these exemptions if successfully applied for. Okay, that's all we've got for redomiciliation. For more information, please click on the link provided or scan the QR code. Thank you.